Whoa. Thank you. I am, thank you. You know, it's nice to be in a place where the guys are not afraid to vote for a woman. I had a conversation the other day. I was down in the South campaigning, and this guy looked at me. He said, "Are you really for Kamala Harris?" I said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "Why?" And I told him. And I said, "Let me ask you something. How many families, homes, and small businesses do you know personally have been saved by women?" I said, "Anybody can put up with all of us, can certainly be president of the United States." And so I'm very grateful to Maggie Hassan for 1,000 things, and being a great senator is one of them. I know Jean Shaheen was here earlier, and I think Billy may still be here. I've been friends with him since 1991, 92. I thank you, Representative Annie Custer. Thank you, Joyce Craig. I think she'll be a great governor. And I thank John Lynch, who held that job and did a great job and was a great friend to Hillary and me, and so was Susan Lynch, and I'm glad, I think she's still here tonight. And I was so proud listening to Maggie Goodlander speak, because I've known her a long time, and Jake Sullivan, our national security advisor, and her spouse was an enormous help to Hillary and an enormous reassurance to me when we were going through a lot of serious security challenges. And I thought then, and I think now, he is extraordinary, but she is something, and a better politician than he is. You know, I have so many longtime friends here, and I just, as a sentimental journey, I'll confess, I stopped at Dunkin' on the way in. And when I ran for president, we had this epidemic of sort of a flu infection all across New England. And it manifested itself by the buildup of fluid on the lungs. And a lot of people, you'd fall asleep for an hour, and an hour later you'd get up and have to get rid of the fluid. And it was horrible. And if you're out here running for election and you know you gotta hit it for 12 hours a day, it's almost impossible. And so I'd sleep an hour and sitting up, wake up, go get rid of the fluid, fall asleep. This went on for 3 weeks. And I gained more than 20 pounds eating donuts to stay awake. So I forgive you for it. I love New Hampshire. When all the pundits said I was toast, 600 people from my native state took out an ad in the Manchester Union Leader and put their telephones on it. This is back when cell phones weighed 5 pounds, and they said, "Call us collect. Don't get rid of our governor." 150 people drove up here from Arkansas, including people, and some of them are friends of you, some of you to the present day. And One guy who was raised in a Republican family and was a computer salesman and had 3 children to support, walked into his boss and said, I see what they're doing to my friend, and I'm going to New Hampshire. I hope you won't fire me. And I need the job. But I've talked to my wife and our kids, and they all want me to go. And he came up here and drove from town to town to town and went into radio stations and did interviews. And he talked about our life together. Our life is still together. His oldest child was killed by a hit-and-run driver right before she was supposed to go get an award for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. So I flew down home to Arkansas to be with them. And she was a great kid. She used to write me when she was 9 or 10 years old. I was in the White House. When she was 17, over 2,000 of her classmates came to her memorial service. And we're still friends. So he organized what I think is one of the finest non-governmental organizations to support the arts in schools, because she was a self-taught artist, and it's still running. So, but our lifelong friendship was cemented in New Hampshire. I could tell you so many other stories that aren't relevant except that this is a place that rekindled my belief that dedicated citizens can make a difference, and that we can, that this crazy negative atmosphere can finally be broken if you do your part, because people know each other. And, you know, I guess I remember once somebody in the Republican right said that I and General Colin Powell, who's a Republican, and General Brent Scowcroft, who was, said, you know, guys like Clinton, Powell, and Scowcroft, they'll never be truly great because they're normal. I mean, basically said, you know, it's a real weakness to be normal. You have to be willing to break people. And so this guy, reporter, asked me what I thought. I said, look, I like normal. I grew up in an alcoholic home. I spent my entire childhood trying to get into the real world. I'm here now, and I like it. I think I'll hang around a while. And so that's what I want you to think about. I've been doing this a long time. I'm not running for anything. Heck, I'm almost as old as Donald Trump. And the thing I'm running for is the future of my grandchildren and yours and your children, and how we'll live together. I want my grandkids to grow up with their fundamental rights and freedoms intact. I want them to stay committed, as they already are as children, to the proposition that people that haven't had their opportunities also deserve an equal shot at the American dream, and that one of the things that government is. I want them to believe that we can do this together, not by agreeing on everything, but by agreeing to treat each other with decency and honor and listen and try to find a way to work together. That's the America Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are committed to build. And look, I'm pretty well qualified to have an opinion here. Not only because I had the job for 8 years and it worked out pretty well for you, but because I've seen a lot, and I know both candidates well. I know Kamala Harris because I've seen her grow in the White House, and I became acquainted with her when she became Attorney General of California, and we have a lot of mutual friends. And Hillary's known her for 30 years. And I've watched her. Nobody is born knowing how to be president. And I was down in North Carolina in the country not very long ago, and this guy says to me, I can't be for her. They just anointed her, and she doesn't deserve it. And it sounded like Trump, you know. So I told him, I said, first of all, I said, she didn't grab it. She was loyal to President Biden. And then, when he decided he just should step aside because he realized that a lot of people weren't sure that he could do 4 more years, and he made a decision that was incredibly selfless and did the right thing. She decided to run, and it was too late to have a primary. But that wasn't his decision, or I mean her decision. She had nothing to do with it. So anyway, this guy said, I just don't believe that. Finally, I said, well, sir, you're not the one to be making this argument, because she is far better qualified to be president than Donald Trump was in 2016. And the thing, Maya Angelou, who was a great friend of mine, once said famously that when people tell you who they are, you should believe them. Most things people say in these campaigns, they actually mean. We get a reputation for being people that, you know, are hiding things here, there, and yonder. That's normally not true. Most people say what they mean and try to do what they say they're going to do if they win. And Donald Trump is closing this campaign just like he started it, airing personal grievances and these bizarre conspiracy theories. He demeans and divides, and he tries to keep all of us all torn up and upset. And when I was a little boy, my mother told me that if somebody tried to make me mad and keep me that way, they were not my friend. And, you know, it's not like he has any proposals that would actually solve these problems. And it's really, he's smart, because actual solutions and us getting along with our neighbors would be very bad for his brand. Isn't that right? I mean, his brand is, you are getting screwed every day by them. They are taking advantage of you. Be for me, don't ask questions, and I'll make you dominant. We will control everything, whatever it is. And I thought, wow. Even when I hear it now, I think he is really good at this. I mean, look, we all said we wanted an orderly border, a lawful border. We saw it. Our law since 1961 has been that if someone has a genuine fear for their safety or the safety of their family, they can come here as refugees if they're properly vetted but they can't jump the line to become a citizen before others who have applied. It's a perfectly sensible law, except it was built, in effect, for a country with far fewer people running around across national borders. And we now have the largest number of people on every continent crossing borders because of all kinds of troubles that we've had since World War II. So we have a system built for 400,000 people, and if 1.2 million show up, there's not a person in this audience, I don't care how well organized you are, who could take the resources that we've given to handle 400,000 people and properly vet over 1 million of them. So the White House offers a deal to the Republicans in the Senate to reduce how many people we take in by the month whenever it gets above a certain number, as long as they have a decent, not luxurious, a decent place to live along the border so we don't divide children and parents. And we then vet them. And it seemed almost too good to be true. There they were, the Senate Republicans working with the White House. The system was going to work the way it was supposed to be until what? He said, no, you can't do that. We can't solve this problem. I have to have people who hate immigrants and are scared to death and are torn up and upset. If I start solving problems, it'll destroy our brand. How will we get people to keep hating each other over this issue? I mean, you're laughing, but you know I'm telling you just exactly as it is. We didn't hire him to solve the problem. So he just is focused on himself. To heck with the immigrants. And please, you cannot solve this problem. How are we going to win if you solve problems? I need people who hate the government, don't trust anybody, believe everything's broken, and the only possible answer is to keep everybody all torn up and upset. And then I'll figure out how to claim credit for whatever happens. We had a pretty day today, you know. I made that happen. Oh, but it rained yesterday. But if I'd been president, it never would have rained. You're laughing, but you've seen it, right? And then if he's not bragging about himself, he's bashing someone else. I never saw a guy who had a hard time saying something nice about anybody unless they had declared absolute obedience to him first. And so I may be wrong, but I think most Americans, a majority, are sick and tired of this us versus them juvenile behavior from the president. And now, but we can't beat something with nothing. We've got to move forward together. And one of the reasons I've been so happy to campaign around the country is that I've been campaigning for someone, I believe will be a very good president. I believe Kamala Harris will be a fine president. I think Greg Walsh will be a fine vice president. Tim Walsh was good. But the reason is, among other things, is she thinks this election is about you, not her. And it's about not going back. It's about addition and multiplication, not subtraction and division. She thinks It's okay if we turn back the clock an hour in a couple of days to get daylight savings, but not if we turn the clock back 50 years on Tuesday. And so I think, I could be wrong about this, but I've been out here in the country, and when I offered to help in the campaign, and I said, I don't care about doing big rallies in big cities, and I said, send me to the country. Send me to the places where former presidents don't go. Let me go back and do what I feel comfortable with, and just listening to people and talking to people. And I've had a grand time. I mean, two guys at the Georgia State Fair wearing MAGA caps asked me to take pictures with them. And the guy said, one of them said, you were really great, and you had those 3 surpluses in a row, and it was great. And I said, can I make my pitch for Harris? He said, no. He said, I really like you, but I'm too far gone. I mean, he was straight. You know, it's basically our culture has been transported. And that's not a good thing. We need to learn to sit and visit with one another. We need to learn to have an open hand, not a clenched fist. So that's the first thing. But I have learned enough to know that the thing Trump thinks will tip this for him is that he thinks he can convince people that he was an immensely successful president in his first term until COVID took it all away from him. Right? And he can say, look, we had a good economy without inflation in my 3 years till the economy wheels went off. And Biden and Harris may have had job growth, but they have inflation. Therefore, you have to vote against them for me. Isn't that about his argument? And have any of you heard some version of that? That's basically the stick. So here's my answer. First of all, Trump really just inherited the last 2 years of Obama's. And this is not hot air. The last 2 years of Obama's presidency produced 8 million jobs. The first 2 years of Trump's produced 6.4. If you take the last 3 years and then the first 3 years, the difference is greater. Then the Democrats fade. We're better at creating jobs than they are because trickle-down economics doesn't work. And so why do we have inflation? Because COVID broke the supply chains, right? And suppose the city government in Nashua passed a law that the best way to save energy and cut costs is for everybody to have a small scooter. And you had, within 3 months, every citizen had to have a scooter. And suppose you could only find 500 scooters in the next 3 months. But the demand's up here, the supply's here. What's going to happen to the price? It's going to go up. That's all that's happened. In other words, no breathing human being could have stopped inflation because we wanted things again when we started coming out of COVID, and they weren't there. And the routes weren't there, and a lot of the business had closed, and all kinds of stuff happened. Well, what did Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and their supporters in Congress do? Like Donald Trump, Joe Biden promises an infrastructure bill. Unlike Donald Trump, he gave us one. And so now we have 60,000 projects, soon be up to 100,000. Then they passed the CHIPS Act to enable us to get into high-tech manufacturing and to get the stuff right away and to block off the prospect that our chips could be shut down. Then they adopted an all-of-the-above energy policy, which enabled us to create an enormous number of jobs in solar, wind, geothermal, small-scale nuclear, where the fuel pellets are in ceramic protection that will secure it from being a danger for thousands of years, and people can do this work. And hydroelectric power and lots of other things, all of the above, so that we're producing more energy than we consume for the first time since the 1950s. And it's created huge numbers of jobs. Right? So, Trump says, well, if I'd been president, that never would have happened. That inflation, just take my word for it. But what's his energy policy? His energy policy, he promised, he told the oil industry, if you'll give me $1 billion, I'll undo every single solitary thing they've done. Which means higher energy policy, prices, lots more inflation, and lots of lost jobs. So far, President Biden and Vice President Harris and their allies have just kept working. If you want 100,000 projects and more jobs, you have to reelect them because he has promised to undo what is driving this economic engine of ours. President Trump. Now, the Federal Reserve, with its Republican chairman, has cut interest rates. And you will certainly soon start to feel that. And lower loan rates for many things. Because we've done the right thing here. Clearly, the answer is not to go back to a 30-year-old energy policy that will increase inflation, cost jobs, and take money right out of your pocket. This is a big deal. Then finally, Trump proposes this humongous tax cut for really rich people that don't need it. So we have this anomalous situation where his program costs $7.5 trillion. Harris's program costs $3.5 trillion, less than half, but her program helps more than twice as many people as his does. So you can she's the only one with a real plan to bring down the cost of essential items. With food, it's obvious that an enormous amount of food in this country is sold by grocery chains, heavily concentrated. And she's the only candidate who says, look, 37 states have price gouging laws, but no state's strong enough to stand up against these national chains, so we need a national law. Nobody wants to fix prices, and if the stores have to make a little higher margin to cover their costs and get over it, well, that's all right. But it is not all right if they go in basically to use a monopoly position to make profits they don't really need to be very healthy, and it all comes right out of your hide. It's a simple thing. Anybody could have said it, anybody could have done it, but only Kamala Harris did. And so one of the things that really bothers me is what Trump wants to do, because his programs will bring more inflation and higher costs. The Economist magazine, quite conservative publication, wrote an unbelievable editorial last week. And they didn't claim to agree with Harris about everything, but they said, you know, Trump is much more likely to bring back inflation and to destabilize the economy, to massively increase the debt. She is a much better bet. And they said if we had a vote, we'd vote for her. So, this idea of putting 20% tariff on everything is like a tax. If we had a temporary tariff to give us time, say, to build the chips, we're going to substitute it, foreign chips, with our chips. And that's legitimate because we need them all right now, and we don't need to believe that a foreign country could basically refuse to give us the chips we need to function and coerce us. That's fine. But we're not about to overnight produce every single solitary thing we buy. So this idea of putting a 20% tariff on everything is basically just a way of saying we'll have to raise the price, I think, an average of 16% on all these products. And it will cost the average working family $4,000 a year. So all these tax benefits he's been promising won't amount to a hill of beans compared to the $4 grand you're going to have to pay out of your pocket because of this. Now, why am I telling you this? Because this race is really close, because nobody ever explains this stuff. And I want you to tell all your neighbors. I want you to call any friends you've got in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, or any other swing state. This is a big deal. Every person you get to turn out, every person you can turn around, it will matter. And there is a reason why all these people who were in Trump's administration won't be for him. Half his cabinet, 2 4-star generals, 3. They know that the solutions won't work, and they're worried about losing our democracy. We got a lot of big challenges, but the things that Trump offers to do won't solve them. And he never tells you the whole story about what we're going to do. So I am praying that you can persuade your neighbors that it's high time to give up the blame game and time to get on the same train. It's just, the cost of food and fuel is too high, but it's coming down. We can fix that. But if you give up your liberties, it may not be fixable. Not for a long time. It drives me crazy, the whole thing. Name me one problem a hateful social media post ever solved. Name me one angry falsehood that better educated a child. Name me one selfish, arrogant boast that ever created a new job. These rants about your enemies, they don't do anything to build a country. And I'm really worried about this country. I mean, look what Donald Trump said about Liz Cheney last night. You would think that Trump could be generous. After all, he caused her to lose her career in Congress. I mean, how much is enough? She stood up for what she believed in, and he did everything he could to beat her, and he beat her. Her family was legendary in Wyoming and very conservative, but they defied the Holy One. And they beat him. Yeah, exactly. And then, yeah, they really celebrated Puerto Rico in there the other night. I mean, but the point I'm trying to make, and you just made it. You know, it's crazy. We need you, by the way. We need you. So let's just close on that. Let's do a little numbers. You know, I like arithmetic. I think it's reassuring. I can't help saying this. I really like Tim Walz. I could not believe that J.D. Vance had the gall in that debate to say that Donald Trump had stabilized the Affordable Care Act. And so what he did was try to put a stake in it. And only John McCain stopped him. You remember that, John McCain? And now, so John McCain stopped him, and what happened? You know, I've been opposed by a lot of people who said a lot of mean things about me. And I still did business with them. One day, the Senate Majority Leader, Trent Lott from Mississippi, called me a spoiled brat on the Sunday talk shows. And all the young people that worked for me were furious. And I said, well, call him. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Sunday night. He said, did you call to chew me out? I said, yeah, but not for what you think. He said, what do you mean? I said, I know what happened to you, Trent. You worked hard all week. You didn't feel good. You didn't want to go on one of those talk shows. And your staff told you had to do it so you get good press. You woke up with a headache, didn't feel good. They baited you with me, and you took the bait. He said, that's exactly what happened. And we had 3 great weeks of working together. You know, if you're going to go around and you think everything's about you and everything has to be taken personally, and the most important thing is for people to bow down to you, that's crazy. And, I mean, look, criticizing the president's almost a constitutional right in America, right? And so here he is going after Liz Cheney, and she's already lost her place in Congress. She loved being in Congress. And she's probably every bit as really conservative as she is, but she didn't want to give up the Constitution. She didn't want to live a lie. And and neither did her father, who has, been defense secretary, and then, of course, vice president. And I've had a lot of disagreements with him. But I would never think to demean him, to lie about him, and to that was spooky what he said about Liz Cheney. And I think we ought to tell her, we're grateful that you're supporting Kamala Harris, and you're welcome anytime to our party. So, you need to go. You got my vote. And we need to keep going, but remember, there's a majority out there who want a better way. There's a majority that approves of inclusive tribalism, not divisive tribalism. And everything that you want for America is on the ballot. So, your family needs you, my family needs you, your community needs you, America needs you. Go win these races. Do it. Thank you.